is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Penni podcast, season 16, episode 8. It is the midpoint of the regular season. So, as is tradition, we must dole out some grades. We used to do trimester grades. We are now moving to a mid-season grade because 14 isn't as Jason will tell you, being a high school math teacher, 14 is not perfectly divisible by 3, but 14 is perfectly divisible by 7. So, lends itself to... Oh, I'm so proud of you. So, it lends itself perfectly to a grading, a first semester grade at the end of week 7 to check in on all your teams, see how you're doing. But before we get there, we have to do our week 7 prediction. And before we get to that, and this is the last bit of ado I'll give, you may notice that one of the boxes is blue currently in our 3-window overlay. Alex, I don't know where you are. I hope everything's okay. It's about 9:15. So Alex was supposed to be joining us for the Amber Rift mid-season grading episode. And sent me his grades. You're gonna see his grades whether he's here or not, whether he's here to defend them or not. But the three of us graded other teams. I'll show you the averages of all 3 grades. I'll show you everyone's records, points scored, points against. I'll show you how they would have done against different schedules. You're gonna see all the data you need to make your own grades if you want to. So, with all that prologue out of the way, Jason, thanks for joining me. Let's get into the recap. And what better way to start a recap than talking about the matchup between the two hosts? As I recall, you sent a message that you were holding that you felt pretty good about your position.
Well, yeah, I did feel good. I didn't realize my quarterbacks were going to be tight ends and get no points. I'm lucky I have Rashad White and Aaron Jones. Yeah. Without them, I got nothing. Zach Ertz, he finally, he had a good game, did better than normal.
The scariest... what I was going to say is the scariest part about this performance by your team, obviously bad performance by the quarterbacks, but the scariest part is that you weren't really having any injury issues. You weren't really having any major bye. Yeah, DeAndre Swift is out. That hurts a little bit. But you got great production out of your running backs. Obviously, again, down week for your quarterbacks. If Kirk Cousins and CJ Stroud put up 20 apiece, it boosts your score by, 28? You're right where you need to be competitive. But
they didn't, so I'm where I'm at.
Right. And what really hurts about this loss for you is this was probably one you couldn't afford to lose, to go to 1-6. You're right now at the bottom of the table in points scored. This was a winnable game.
But there's a highlight. I didn't get a bagel this week.
You didn't get a nice bagel this week. Unlike some people in this conversation.
I was 2 for 2 over the last 2 weeks, so...
You had 3 bagels in 1 week. I think you set a league record for most bagels in one week with 3 in 1 week.
Yep, 4 total.
Jerry, see Jerry in the chat said, McMillan, I trusted you. Why?
And honestly, it comes down to, if I put in Justin Herbert, I beat you. But, you had such a good game by Lamar. I'm pretty sure I'm going to lose that slap bet.
Oh, yeah.
Unless something unfortunate happens, which I don't want to. It's unreal. I should have. Waddle, Smith, they might as well have been bagels, too.
Oh, yeah.
This was a week I should have won, and I didn't, and I don't see how I come out of this.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna need a
I'm
miracle.
Sacco headed. Like, just move on.
You're gonna need a miracle. You're gonna need to turn things around. It's never over until it's over. Uh, I don't disagree. We deserve to tie, Jerry. I deserve to lose. I truly did, and I'll get to that in a second. But I will say, like, I think you need a miracle at this point to save your season. We'll get to that in the grading. But like, when Alex started the season in a rough patch and then has gone on a tear ever since. You never pulled out of the tailspin, and you're still in it. You gotta pull up, or your season's done. And honestly, at this point, you basically don't have room for error. Like, think about this: you could win every game in the rest of the regular season.
Look, we're gonna get to grades later, bud.
I know. I'm just saying you could.
I don't want to get torn a new one twice.
All right. I'll save it. Here, let's go to my team really quick before we move on. I just want to say, like, my team is decimated by injuries, and I don't know. Two things I want to comment on with regard to injuries. First, I struggled all week. I did not start a quarterback at Superflex because I have Dak on bye. Derek Carr was out, and so I struggled with the prospect of adding. I was going to add Snoop Huntley, was probably going to be my move, and I did not want to drop anybody on my roster. I'm like, I like everybody.
You got a solid roster. I mean,
if I had to pick someone, it was going to be Juju. If I was going to drop anybody, it was going to be Juju. And then he goes and puts up an ice bagel and gets injured and is out next week. And it's like, man, could have gotten away with that one had I stuck to my guns. It didn't end up hurting me. I thought it was gonna. The other thing is,
yeah, now everybody knows who to bid on.
I don't know who saw this in the chat, but when I got that Chris Godwin catch and then I came back and Connor got the touchdown and I won, I said cue the Thanos that Thanos line when he's talking to what's her name, his daughter.
Yeah.
Is it Gamora? I think is it Gamora? He's talking. Like, Thanos talking to Gamora. He goes, or did you do it? Whatever. Yes. What did it cost? Everything. That's how I feel about this. Did you beat McMillan? Yes. What did it cost? Chris fucking Godwin is what it cost. The wide receiver 2 in fantasy. And there were, like, I can't afford to lose Lamar. Thank goodness it wasn't him. Kittle would have been a backbreaker. Thank goodness it wasn't him. After that, it was Chris Godwin was my third best player, and arguably second if you want to count him over Kittle. Like, this was a bad one. And my team is already banged up. I understand I'm going to get crap from Jason Smith now because, oh, you can't complain after a loss, blah, 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 blah. Or you can't complain when you win, blah, 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 blah. But, like, this one hurts. And my team went from being a deep playoff run contender, I think, to being I'm a playoff team probably by virtue of my record, but I'm borderline. I would be a borderline playoff team but for my record.
Well, yeah, I mean, you had a tremendous start. I mean, and honestly, I mean, okay, so you have some injuries. You still have some depth and everything else. I mean, granted, your bench, Jesus Pete, 0 points.
Everyone was injured. Dak bye, Taylor out, Olave out, Brooks hasn't played a game all season because he's been out, Jacoby Myers out, Hawk out, Tolbert bye, Derek Carr out. I had nothing left in the tank.
You really did play the only person you possibly could.
Yeah. My team...
I'm not so sure that you shouldn't be the luck box.
I mean, no. Like I said, I agree with Jerry in the chat. There's no... I don't think there's any realistic way that I don't make the playoffs at this point with a 6-1 record. And I understand it's all a roll of dice at that point. But I'm also not a luck box. I have the second highest points scored in the league. It's just that my team was designed to... I needed to survive the first stretch of the year because I had Hawk and Brooks out on injury. And I did that, but now the entire rest of my team is getting banged up. Hopefully Taylor will come back. Anyway, we talked about my team enough. Let's move on. this was a big game. Moving on to Zach and Scotty, our game was a 3 point, less than 3 point margin of victory. This was less than a 1 point margin.
0.68.
Yeah, and you want to talk about luck box? Well, here we go again.
Oh, I've already got it.
Go ahead.
No, I mean it's like it's unreal. Like you look at his players, like majority of them, they either win off or just shit the bed. But it's like he just has enough to go off that it offsets him. Like I don't understand. Like he's that close. Like Scotty makes almost any change in his lineup with his bench that's like productive. And I mean, geez, who peas? Like,
Yeah.
I
The real scary part about Zach's team is he put up 122 and got a win. There were a lot of teams that were kind of around that 110, 120 mark.
There was 4 teams within 2.16 points.
Yeah. I mean, there were some close scores this week, but he had Kamara put up 5. Daniel Jones put up 6. Zay Flowers, I told you I don't like Ravens wide receivers, put up 3.5.
I think that's blue.
He had some players, have stinkers, and Tyreek Hill still has yet to perform like the number 2 overall pick Zach drafted him at, as 1.8 points. And Tua is coming back they say, this coming week. He might play against the Cardinals. If that boosts Tyreek's value, and now Zach has Saquon, Kamara, Tyreek all contributing, and Jalen Hurts putting up 20 a week, and Drake London being a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy somehow, like, what do you do? Like, Zach's going to win a title. Zach is, right now, until someone proves otherwise, Zach might not be the hottest team in the league. He's the best team in the league until someone proves otherwise.
Yeah, and I mean that's going to come out in my grading.
So, meanwhile, for Scotty, I mean,
like his bench like isn't horrible. I mean, Jonathan Taylor got him good points. Jacoby Myers, surprisingly for the Raiders, did something. I mean, he left potential on the bench, which would have done it. But I mean, he needed this win.
Yeah. Scotty has been the bad luck Brian so far. He's got the most points against in the league. And he doesn't have a bad team. We'll get to it in grading.
Yeah.
But I said from the draft, this is a first to worst situation. It's not. I just think he's cursed right now. I don't know.
Yeah. We're going to talk about it, but I think Tua is going to make a difference. So,
yeah. But it's not going to help Scotty. Not one Dolphin on that roster that'll benefit from it. Moving on to our third matchup, we got James and Jason Smith. And once again, the team that is good on paper falls apart.
I don't understand it.
Yeah.
I look at his team and I go, man, that's a great team.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the score and goes, no.
No, I wholeheartedly agree with you. To be fair, Jaden Daniels got hurt, went out for the game. That could have made a difference. He put up 5.24 points in a 40-7 win. I suspect that if Jaden Daniels had played the full game, this might have been a different result. It also wasn't. It was unfortunate for Jason that CD was on bye. That could have potentially made a difference. He put up 130. You're expecting to win, right?
Hey, give me 1 second. My stuff's freaking out. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. What was that?
Okay. What was the dog?
Savannah?
Yeah, she got a weird cough or something. She's fine.
Okay.
Um, sorry. So like, when I switched over, it gave me my team. It was weird. Anyways, say what you're saying again.
So I was just saying that like Jason put up 130. You're expecting to win.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
He dealt with the Jaden Daniels injury, but otherwise his team performed well. Jason is still in the thick of the playoff hunt. Like Jason is
Oh yeah, I mean he's the second highest scoring team. He plays anybody else and he wins.
he is this week. You're right. You're right. He is. It is unfortunate that he was the second highest scoring team this week and lost. He's also second highest in, or sorry, third highest in points against this season. But
It's an unfortunate loss for somebody that needed a win.
good news for him is, yeah, I don't know why they're static. I mean, is it my microphone, Jerry? Can you elaborate? If it's my microphone, I can try to do something different here. I'm gonna try to use a different microphone and switch it up a little bit and see if that
I don't know.
makes a difference. I'm gonna use a different mic. Let me know if I've still got some static, Jerry, please. So,
Move my other computer.
well, I like I said, I switched my mic, so maybe that'll make a difference. So, the good news for Jason is Mixon performed well, Sun God performed well. Amari Cooper in his first game in Buffalo looks like he's gonna be a guy. Kyler did fine. Like, good signs of life for Jason's team despite the loss. I don't think James's team is this good, but yet every week he scores a ton of points and wins games.
Yeah. I mean, with Jason, the only thing I'm curious about when you've got Metcalf and Daniels, how they're going to do going forward.
Yeah, I mean it's a great question, but um,
There.
yeah, I'm here. Sorry, can you still hear me? Hold on, can you hear me, buddy?
Hey,
There we go. Sorry about that. I think it's when I switched my mic, it might have cut me off. All right, moving on to our fourth matchup. Window takes a tough loss to Jerry. And you were talking about points scored. Jerry was, I think, seventh in points scored this week, and gets a huge win against
yes.
Window, who was eighth. I mean, that's the crazy part about this week is like there were so. I think Zach said in the chat or something like that. Like this might have been the closest finishes in that I can remember in a long time in the league.
Yeah, 4 out of 5 within 5 points.
That's crazy. But huge win for Jerry. Kareem Hunt looks like the right handcuff for Pacheco. Um, it really what saved his ass is the Broncos D against the banged up Saints, putting up
Oh my
20.
goodness, he had 20 points.
Yeah, I mean that that's the difference. And he also helped that. I mean, Window honestly has a right to feel a little bit salty. Debo 0 points. Tank Dell 0 points. Like double ace bagel by two guys who you do not expect it from. And Debo obviously now hurt.
I think Tank Dell's hurt too.
Yeah, is he? Did he get hurt this week? Was that why he did so poorly?
Oh, he did. Maybe
No.
no, he just
He got
sucked.
4 targets and not a catch.
Nope, never mind.
Oops. So yeah, I mean, I think this is one where Jerry has to be happy about some of his players, but also more than anything, just the win. Like this, if he was 1-6 with you, and he plays me this week, he's playing me at the right time, but like he needs to go. He like he said last week on the pod, he needs to go on a run, and this might have
Well,
been
I
the
mean,
first
this
step
this
towards that.
starts. I mean, he managed to eke out a win.
Yep. I will say one silver lining for Window before we move on. Tank Bigsby, who he spent buku bucks on the Fab wire, looks like he might be the guy after all.
Yeah.
Um, he's got some stud running backs. He's got pieces that he can move if he needs to. He's got Devontae Adams, Deebo Samuel, Tank Dell. His team on paper is about as good as you could want. But I'm still not sold yet.
No, I mean, yeah, he's got. I don't know. Like I again don't want to dip into the grades, but I ended up changing his based off this week, but I I think I'm gonna see him in the Sacco Bowl with me.
Oh, we'll get there. Last matchup to recap. Alex, 4-game winning streak, ekes out a 2-point win against Brad, who drops to 4-3. And this one was a nail biter until the end too. It came down to Alex, the Steeler fan, got saved by Mandrews.
Yeah, and he was at the game.
Yeah, yeah, but Mark Andrews, the Baltimore Raven, saved Alex's bacon on Monday Night Football. I mean,
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
all I'll say is uh, Alex might have a sneaky good pickup in Drake May. He looks like he might be a decent fantasy backup quarterback. Um, and for Alex, who was hurting because Justin Fields is no longer starting in Pittsburgh, it's the perfect pickup. Uh,
Yeah. You didn't get the joke when I was like, I don't want to talk about Mark Andrews, did you?
oh, why? Because you drafted him in the 5th round and now he's on Alex's roster.
Yeah, and I just dropped him for free.
Yeah, I don't know why you did that. That was big time dumb. Like it wasn't big time dumb. Some people did that, but I
But
thought
I
it was
mean, like that,
premature.
it might turn out to be a good pick. We'll see.
Yeah, that was his first big week, I think.
Oh, it's his only week.
Yeah. Um. So yeah, Alex, big win to survive a bye week where he also had DJ Moore out.
Yeah,
Um.
I mean, I think his players were getting in a groove.
The concern I have is with Brad's team. Ayuk, what he tears ACL and MCL, I'm
Oh
pretty
yeah.
sure. So he's out. Devon Achane and Raheem Mostert have not done anything without Tua there. Is Tua going to help the Dolphins' run game? I guess if they can't stack the box as much, but again, I don't trust the Dolphins this year until I see it on the field. He's got some reasons for concern in terms of his depth because I don't think he has really.
Oh, he
He
doesn't
has
have it.
he has Rico Dowdle is a decent asset on his bench, but
But I mean, he's got Gardner Minshew as his quarterback, who went negative.
right. Well, and he's still starting. He's still gonna have to start 3 wide receivers. I mean, Justin Jefferson, Calvin Ridley. Who's your third? Keon Coleman, Jalen Naylor. Not great.
I mean, they're players that like all of a sudden have a good game, but it's crapshoot figuring out when it's going to be.
If I were Brad, I would maybe try to move a running back for a wide receiver to boost some depth with Ayuk gone. That might be a move.
He's going to have to do something, but I mean, we'll see how A Chain does with Tua back. But I mean, he's not overly wealthy and
Yeah,
running backs either.
yeah, it's true. But I don't know. I feel like Brad is. He still put up 120. I can't be too mad. He put up 20 more points than we did, but still. Um,
Yeah.
so
I mean, going back to Alex real quick. I mean, just to point out, if Alex, I mean, I know it's optimal lineups and everything else, but his bench did so well. Like he actually would have been the highest scorer with over 154 points.
wow,
So, I mean, I think he's got a solid team that's moving forward.
that's fair. So with the predictions done, it's time for our grades. And as you'll see, I've got a nice little setup here with every team, their record, their total points scored, total points against, and their record below that. You'll see the weekly record against all teams. So every week you'll see who would have beaten everybody, who would have lost everybody and everything in between. So without further ado, let's get into grades. And I'll start with my grade. We're going to start at the top of the standings and work our way down. I'm going to do my grade first, give my spiel. I'll turn it over to McMillan. And then once we're done, I'll show Alex's grade and the grade average based on the three of us. So you get your Amber Rift average grade. I gave myself a B plus, and I think my team's actual like I said this earlier. I think my team's relative strength is probably like middle of the pack, slightly above middle of the pack. So it's probably closer to a B or a B minus in terms of like overall strength. This is based on my record. I didn't give myself an A, just even with a 6-1 record, because of the Godwin injury. If Godwin hadn't got injured, I would have given myself an A minus. But I had to ding myself for that. I'm second highest in total points scored. I've just had the right week, the right schedule. Like me playing you this week was huge for me. I mean, I have also the most troubling trend for me is if you look at that weekly record. I started the season, I was second highest scorer the first 2 weeks. Then I was third highest scorer the next 2 weeks after that. Then I was fourth highest scorer the week after that. Fifth highest scorer in week 6. Last week I was the second lowest scorer. It's like I've always been top half of the league until this week, but I've been trending in the wrong direction. So still 6-1, second highest in scoring. Like Jerry said, I shouldn't miss the playoffs. B plus. I'm very happy. Turn it over to you.
All right. Well, gave you a B. Originally, you're an A minus, but with Godwin going down, I had to knock you down to a B.
Yeah, I get it.
You are second in scoring, but you look at your schedule and I mean, it's been a little bit easier than some others. So I figured B's about the right place for you, but I'm pretty damn confident you're going to make the playoffs.
It's funny you mentioned that I had a soft schedule, because if I had your schedule, this will show you the difference. If I had, to be fair, if I had anyone else's schedule in the league, I would be above 500, except for two people's. James's, I'd be 3-4. But if I had your schedule, I would be 2-5. That's what's crazy. So
Hey, Sarah. That's how it works out. Sometimes you play the Browns, sometimes you play the 49ers.
yeah. Alex also gave me a B, and that put my overall average at a B. So now we move on to Zach. Um, I mean, I gave him an A minus, and did I give him actually maybe I gave him an A. Is that an A or no? Yeah, I gave him an A minus. That's an A minus. And I just spoiled your grade. I'm sorry. I just had to make sure I had it right. I gave him an A minus because he is. I mean, his scoring is still again like upper part of the table. I think he's like fourth in total points scored, but there's like kind of in that 840, 850 pack. Um, he's. We've all said Zach's a box. I know he probably gets sick of hearing it, but again, for context, if he had any other schedule aside from his and Jerry's, he would not be 6-1. If he had Scott, McMillan, Jason Smith, or Alex's schedule, he'd be below 500. Like, he has obviously benefited, and we both have benefited from a favorable schedule, but Zach has 760 points against. He is second lowest in points against in the league. I can't, in good conscience, give him a full A for that. And I also, just looking at his team, it's obviously tremendously boosted by his disgustingly good running backs in Saquon and Kamara, the top two of the top three running backs in fantasy. Drake London's a top 3 wide receiver in fantasy. Somehow Tucker Kraft is a top 3 tight end. But when you get beyond that, it's really kind of just meh. Like Jalen Hurts is good, but meh. So
Yeah,
I'm just not a big
No.
believer in Zach's team that it deserves this A or A plus. Like this is Zach is gonna be in the playoffs because he always is. He's gonna be a competitor, and because his running backs could go off at any point. I also wouldn't call him a title favorite. So that's just me.
Yeah, well, as you're going to put up there, I mean, I give him an A. Um, I think with Malik Neighbors back, Daniel Jones is going to start performing again. I mean, Barkley's been doing great. Kamara, I mean, we're going to see he's been kind of on a downtick, but with Hill, I mean, with Tua coming back, like if Tua can actually, no offense, Sean, but stay on the field,
None taken.
I think Tyreek's he's got good potential again. Drake London's been doing great. Zay Flowers had a rough week, but I mean, I think Lamar likes him. It was just one of those weeks. Najee's always a worry, but I mean, Pittsburgh looks like they're leaning on him again. So, and I mean, of course, I obviously believe in Jalen Hurts. I have a slap bet on it. So, I think he's definitely making the playoffs, and I think he's got a strong run at it.
Well, Alex agreed for the second time in a row with your grade. He also gave Zach an A, which puts Zach's total grade at an A. And spoiler alert, Zach received the highest grade in the class. So turning now to the pack of players at 4-3, it's really interesting. Before we move on, we have the kind of the buys right now. If the season ended today, Zach and I would be the buys at both at 6-1. Then you have a 2-game gap between these 4 teams at 4-3, for which there will be obviously 3 playoff spots based on record, and then there's the wild card, which if the season ended today would actually be Jason Smith by a hair. But just interesting that there's this big log jam at 4-3. So going to James's record,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
James is the overall points leader, and he's kind of middle of the pack in points against. I gave him a B plus. I did not give James an A despite being the overall points leader. Here's my thinking with James. I honestly was really conflicted. I'm like, on one hand, oh, he's got Bijan Robinson's an RB1. Brian Thomas Jr. is a wide receiver 1. Baker Mayfield's the second best quarterback in fantasy football right now somehow. David Montgomery's a borderline RB1 or high end RB2. Jared Goff's a high end QB2. Like, I'm looking at all of his players. I'm like, they're really underperforming. Or I'm sorry,
Yeah.
let me flip that. Overperforming. Like, they're really punching above their weight. On the flip side, like AJ Brown is like a flex wide receiver right now because of his injuries. He's putting up 20 points a week, like when he's healthy, but he just hasn't seen the field. Like, and I guess that James's starting lineup, and this is without Mike Evans, mind you, is averaging more than 140 points a week.
Yep.
Like, he's got a good team. I just still don't know that I believe in him.
And that's what I said. Like in my notes, I just said middle of the road, nothing special, but gets the job done.
So what did you give him?
I gave him a C plus.
Interesting.
I honestly think like a lot of his players are, I don't know, just not feeling his team. Like I know I should, and I mean it looks great and everything else, but when I looked at it, just C
It
plus.
just doesn't have that name brand recognition, you know?
No, but I mean, it's getting the job done, and that's honestly all that really matters. So as long as it gets the job done, who cares what I think?
Well, Alex kind of split the baby here. I gave him a B. I gave James a B plus. You gave him a C plus. Alex fell in the middle. He was a B. So that put James's average grade at a B. And now we turn to Brad. So Brad is again right in this kind of 4-3 log jam. Interestingly, Brad has had the fewest points again against him this season.
when you look at his record, if Brad had Alex's schedule, he'd be 1-6. Generally speaking, and if he had Zach's schedule, he'd be 5-2. It shows you the extremes. But generally speaking, he falls somewhere in that. He like his schedule is all over the place because it just depends on who he played. Looking at his roster, and I'll say my grade now. I gave Brad a B plus like James, and it was because he has enough studs that, and I actually think maybe I overestimated. Maybe I actually would probably change this grade because of Ayuk's injury. I think I don't know if I factored in
It does
Ayuk's
make a
injury.
difference.
Huh?
Like I say, it does make a difference having Ayuk out.
Ayuk is a huge difference. I mean, he's been underperforming this year, but he is a good player. Like Brad's depth is going to be tested, and he doesn't have a particularly deep lineup. I He has the second best tight end in fantasy. He has Josh Allen, who's always going to be a QB1 until the end of time. He's got Justin Jefferson, who's always going to be a wide receiver 1 until the end of time. Jordan Love's a fine QB2, but Achane and Pollard have kind of been meh.
I mean, Chain's another one. Like it hinges. Like if Tua comes out, does a great job, they're able to start handing off more, get those big runs.
Honestly, if I could reevaluate, the more I talk about this, the more I'm thinking to myself, yeah, I might reevaluate Brad's grade that I gave him. Uh,
I
but
mean, he's got upside, but it's sketchy upside. I mean, Brock Bowers is doing great right now, but he's still on the Raiders.
other thing too, just to point out, I didn't go to the weekly record versus all teams. I should have gone to that a couple times here in this conversation already. Uh, Couple fun things to point out with that. James has the best record against all teams, 45-18. I'm next with 42-21. Then there's Zach at 35-28. Brad is all the way down at the eighth best record, 27-36. He's actually he's had a couple bad weeks, but he's like against all teams, he is under 500. So just interesting facts. But I gave him a B plus anyway. I still think with his record, with his points scored, with his star power, he'll be in the playoff conversation. I like him more than a couple other kind of teams in that playoff convo.
Yeah, I mean, I gave him a C plus. That easy schedule just it makes it hard to judge him, and and honestly, he picks up an injury or two beyond Ayuk, and he's just not coming out of that. So
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Um,
and like I said, I mean, A-Chain like relies on Tua. Jordan Love, I mean, he's got a nice matchup this week against Jacksonville, but I mean, we'll see if Green Bay can keep doing what they're doing.
so Alex uh, again split the baby here and gave a B. So that put much like James literally the two of us or all three of us, you, me, and Alex, graded James and Brad the exact same.
Yeah,
So consistency.
there we go.
So moving to Window, you see my grade if you're watching the stream. I gave Window a C plus, and this is in large part because I just don't. This is kind of similar to your thing with Jane or with Brad. I just don't trust his team. Like he's been all over the place in terms of scoring. Week 4, he was the top score. Sorry, week 1 he's the third lowest. Week 2 he's the third highest. Week 3 he's the second highest. Week 4 he's the highest. Week 5 he's the lowest. It's just all over the place. Last week he was third lowest, and again, you look at I try to look at that schedule chart with Window. He alternates between 5-2 and 2-5, just depending upon whose schedule he would have had. He's fortunate to be above 500 based on that. he's
I mean, you look at his team, and they're not bad. I mean, when you look at the names, I mean, Derrick
he,
Henry, Kenneth Walker, I mean, Theory Devontae Adams,
yeah.
Patrick Mahomes, Jordan Mason. I mean,
His team is fine. It is slightly above average is what I would rate his team. He
that's why I
has
gave him a C.
well, so I said slightly above, slightly just a hair above average. Why I put him at a C plus. But he has two RB1s. He's got the best running back in fantasy in Derrick Henry. He's got two RB1s in Henry and Kenneth Walker. Jordan Mason is a ticking clock because when McCaffrey does eventually come back at some point, his value is kaput. He's got a tight end one in Trey McBride. Beyond that, he's got role players. I'm sorry. Until Devontae Adams proves it in New York, he's until Deebo Samuel can stay healthy and see the field. Same for Tank Dell. Until Patrick Mahomes can go back to putting up 20 points a week and not averaging under 14. Like, fun fact, Patrick Mahomes is not a QB2 right now. He's a QB. He is not one of the top 20 quarterbacks in fantasy football.
Shoot, what was my bet? He would never be the leading
Yeah,
quarterback all season.
yeah. I mean, he hasn't shown he can do it anymore from a fantasy perspective. Like, he is not an efficient quarterback. So that's why I gave the C plus. You said you gave a C.
Yeah. It's all the same reason you said. Like, the performance is not going to continue. I mean, he has players that should do well and just don't. I mean, have fun with it while it lasts window, but once Mason's gone, you are too.
Yeah. So Alex, this is why I wish Alex were here, because Alex gave him an A.
An A?
An A. I'm gonna double check the text, but
I didn't look at it. I didn't want to spoil tonight. So when he sent it, I didn't even look at it.
Look at it. Window A. He gave him an A. So Alex, I wish you were here because I need you. Maybe you'll have to do it in the Facebook group or something like that. But I need you to defend this take here because an A seems high. For context, you rate him the same as Zach and above everybody else in your grades. So
yeah, that I just like
that brought his grade up to a B minus. So
way to screw things up, Alex.
Well, let's turn to Alex. So Alex, is the last team in the 4-3 pack, but he's not like in terms of total points scored. Let me actually. Did I make a mistake on this? I'm looking at my table now. Give me a second. I must have made a mistake. Because Scott has way more points than this. So, yep, give me a second. I'm going to fix something on my table. Well,
All right, cool. So I'll entertain you while Sean's doing stuff on his computer.
thanks.
No problem.
I don't like faulty figures. All
yeah,
right.
I'm doing that. No, I'm not very good at entertaining, apparently.
All right. Well, I'm done.
All right, good job.
So, whoops. So, Alex, you'll see the grade on the screen if you're looking at it. I gave him a B. Here's the thing about Alex. He started off the season in the worst possible way. He was the lowest score the first 2 weeks of the year. But since that time, he's kind of put it together. He's been a top 3 scorer each of the last 3 weeks.
He puts in his work.
I don't know. I gave him a B because I think his team has the players to get him there. Like,
100%. I mean, but as long as they can avoid injuries, I think he's making the playoffs.
Well, and they're trending in the right direction, right? Brees has kind of recaptured some form lately and is an RB1.
Scary Terry's looking.
Mark Andrews has his best week of the season last week and has put up 14 or more in the last 2 weeks.
That one's a question for me still.
Scary Terry is a high-end wide receiver 2 as of right now. Stephon Diggs is a wide receiver 1 technically, but certainly in that scoring about the same amount of points. Joe Burrow is actually a top 5 quarterback right now. And remember one big thing about Alex's team. We talked about Tua a couple times on this podcast. He has Tua.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about Justin Fields, when I was talking about Justin Fields, losing Justin Fields and picking up Drake May, well, he's going to be able to start Tua soon. And if Tua does come back and ball out, that might be a difference maker for Alex.
Oh, yeah.
So I gave him a B. I think he's right where he needs to be at this point in the year.
For me, yeah, B minus. So pretty much same thoughts that you're having. He's got a good team. I think he has a solid bench that goes with it. He has players that can definitely go off at, any given time. Tua coming back. I just think he's on a massive uptick. He got over that hump that I never did, and started winning games with his crappy team, and mine teach him stay crappy. Yeah, he's a solid B minus, and honestly, I wouldn't expect him to lose in the next couple of weeks.
What's interesting is Alex is, and we know this about Alex, he's always hardest on himself.
Yes.
He gave himself a C. So.
Well, he gave Window an A, so.
He gave himself the worst record of any team with 4 wins. And because of that, his grade was a B minus. Now we move to the 3, 2, and 5 teams. And we're going to start with the one that has, both Scott and Jason Smith have been had a ton of points against and have scored a decent enough clip to be in the conversation. But we'll start with Scott. I gave Scott a C. And I thought that was pretty generous for a 2 and 5 record. The reason why I gave him that is he, generally speaking, he had one bad week in week 6. Aside from that, he's kind of been in the thick of the scoring chart, so to speak, or the scoring hierarchy. Honestly, he could be as good as 5 and 2 if he had Zach's schedule. But we are where we are. Looking at his team, honestly, he's got some studs.
Jamar Gibbs, yeah.
Gibbs and Kyron Williams are top 5 running backs right now. They're averaging at least 17 a week each.
Jamar Chase has been blowing up.
Best wide receiver in fantasy right now, averaging 17 a week. By the way, Geno Smith's been a QB1, averaging 17 a week. And James Cook's been an RB2. Jaden Reed's somehow been a wide receiver 1, averaging 13 and a half a week. He's got some players. It's just, for me, I'm sorry, and I said this about Windows' team from the jump. Or I'm sorry, about Scotty's team from the jump. I just feel like he's cursed. It's just a gut feeling I have that he's going to go first to worst. I've been saying it all year. I'm manifesting this destiny. He is going to miss the playoffs and have 2 really bad weeks. And it's just going to happen.
His players just aren't consistent.
Yeah.
And when you put that against the most points against, it's tough to give him a good grade. And I gave him a D.
Oof. Harsh. That's the first D we've seen so far.
Sorry, Scott, but yeah, I'm with Sean. think the fate's against you. The luck gods gave you your first season. Now they're going to humble you back down.
Alex agreed with me, gave him a C. So overall, his average grade was a C minus. So now we go to Jason Smith. Hashtag good on paper. Jason Smith he was the highest scorer in week 6. He was the second highest scorer last week. And didn't he lose? Did he lose? Did I remember that right?
Yeah.
He's so unlucky. No, Jason, I feel so bad for the man because the truth is, if he had Brad's schedule, he'd be 6-1. If he had Zach's schedule, he'd be 6-1. Like, there are a lot of ways this season could have gone a lot better for Jason.
Oh, yeah.
I gave him a B. And, honestly, you could make the same arguments for Scotty based on what we just talked about. But his team is just really good on paper. Like, if you listen to his roster for a moment, top to bottom. Jaden Daniels, Joe Mixon, J.K. Dobbins, CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Amari Cooper, Evan Engram, Ramondre Stevenson, Kyler Murray, Chargers defense. And, Devin Singletary, DK Metcalf on the bench. Like, among others. Like, he's got a decent roster. Jaden Daniels is him. Top 3 quarterback in fantasy. Sun God
play next week.
Sun God and CD are really good. Joe Mixon and Dobbins have been RB2s, DK's been a wide receiver 1. Like, there's a lot to like about his roster, and he's putting up points at a decent clip. He just can't get wins. But if you ask me, out of Scotty and Jason Smith, if you just told me one of these teams will make the playoffs, pick which one. I'm going Jason.
Yeah, I agree. He's definitely on the bubble, but I just don't understand why. Like, his team should be better. Like, it's again, like, his name is just perfect.
Well,
and
good news. He just joined the chat the moment that we started grading him.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, continue.
But I mean, the injuries he has. I mean, Metcalf and Daniels. I mean, they could hurt him in the weeks to come, and he's only 2-5, so you really can't give up that many losses anymore. So
very good point.
Yeah, I mean, I gave him a C though. I mean, you should be better. Like, the fantasy gods, I think, just hate you right now.
It is really funny because this is like the second or third season in a row where, like, I look at Jason's roster, I'm like, damn, he's got a good team. And he just can't get wins. It's so funny. Alex agreed with me, surprise, surprise, gave Jason Smith a B, which brought his overall grade to a C+. So we got 2 teams left, and they are our 2 lowest scoring teams. We're going to start with the one with the extra win. Jerry got his much needed win this past week, but Jerry has not been lighting the fantasy world on fire. Jason Smith in all caps in the chat. It's so funny. Sorry, bud. Jerry,
Funny for us.
Fun fact, and even you, as bad as your team has been, were one of the top 5 teams in scoring at least some point this season. So far this year, Jerry has never been in the top 5 teams in scoring. Not one week. Now, he has an extra win to show for it.
Yeah, but I got a rough schedule.
Yeah, and I understand Jerry's going to say, oh, I could be so much better. And he's right, to be fair. Like, if he had Windows schedule, he'd be 5-2. But that's the only person in the league who, if he had that schedule, would give him a 500 record. And to be clear, if he had Scotty's schedule, he would be winless. That is the only he is the only person that, if he had a different schedule, could be winless this year. So it could be worse. Just remember. My turning to his actual, like, the actual merits of his team. Jerry's roster is just, it's just, you talk about like banged up and stuff like that, right? He just
Oh, very.
he just lost his studs early. Like, he wasn't, who's equipped to lose Christian McCaffrey and Isaiah Pacheco like early in the year. Like, your two best running backs, you lose them. And thankfully he's got Kareem Hunt now, which looks like the a perfect handcuff to keep him afloat. But, oh, by the way, sorry, I failed to mention Cooper Kupp. Like,
Yeah.
he's just been dealing with injury issues. Keenan Allen has been underwhelming and or injured. Like, you know, it's just, I don't know that anyone in Jerry's position could have done anything differently. Just based on the injury issues, but like, he did get a much needed win. He is, at least the last 3 weeks, kind of competing more. Getting Cooper Kupp back's big. If he could get one of his running backs back in the fold, he's back in it. But he's in a bad way. So I gave him a D. I'm not ready to say, to give him the F yet, even though he's basically at the same amount of total points scored as you. But, you know, it's not
Spoiler on what my grade is.
it's not his fault necessarily. Like I said, that he's had some big time injury issues, but I gave him a D.
Yeah, I gave him a D plus. Originally, it was going to be an F, but after the games, everything else, I think he's got potential to pick things up. I mean, obviously, if Christian McCaffrey comes back and does Christian McCaffrey things, his team's getting a huge upside. His players are coming back. They're coming back stronger. So I'm giving him a D plus. I think he's going to be in the Sacco playoffs, but in all honesty, if his players all get healthy and strong, he could have a run, but it's going to be very, very difficult.
The thing that really hurts him, right? It's definitely possible, but like, the thing that really hurts him is he is, and he, again, not dead. I want to emphasize not dead,
Yeah.
but he's 70 points back from his best case scenario on wild card right now.
So he's got to win out. I mean,
He's got to either start putting up points in a hurry, or he's got to win a whole bunch of games, because he doesn't have much more room for error. If he wins out, he's 9-5. I don't think it's likely that, with Jerry's roster still recovering from injury, that he's going to win out. He's got he can afford maybe a loss or two, and that's really it. But really, it's maybe one loss, because there are right now 6 teams in the table with at least 4 wins. You're already 2 games behind in the standings. You've got to make up ground, and you're not going to make it all back at once, because some teams are just going to be winning. So he's got a big week. I think I play him this week. I'm pretty sure. We'll look at it in the predictions, but he's got a big matchup this week.
yeah. Yeah, he plays you.
Alex gave him a D, just like me, and that means his overall average grade is a D. And last and least, my fellow co-host, we come to your team.
Complete garbage. I have players that will put up points one week, tank the next. Even my bench doesn't really do much. I'm garbage. Come to me, Sacco Bowl.
I mean, you've been in the bottom 2 in scoring each of the last 3 weeks. It looked
I
like,
don't understand, but it is what it is.
I mean, there isn't, you could have had any person's record in the league, or I'm sorry, any person's schedule in the league, and you would be below 500 right now. There is not one person's schedule that you could have had that would put you above 500 at this point, even Zach's. It's just bad, and it's not like, don't get me wrong, dropping Mark Andrews doesn't help, but there's just not a lot to like about your roster.
No, there's nothing.
It's Neighbors, it's Aaron Jones. I guess Rashad White had a great week.
Yeah, but he had a great week. That's what I'm saying. Like, someone would be like, "Oh, look how good I do, Juwan Jennings. Look at my score," and then like people leave, and then it's like, all right, well now, or people come back. Now again, people leave, so it's like, is he going to do it good again? Like, it's just a crapshoot.
Honestly,
I'm in hell.
if I were you, I would be looking to move running backs to just get something. Like I would be trying to make a trade maybe, and just try to switch something up, because it's just unless you believe in your roster that it's going to win a title, or that you're not win a title, unless you believe in your roster that you're going to be able to weather the storm and make a comeback and make a push, you know, you got to do something.
Oh yeah, I mean,
But
problem is, I mean, it's hard to trade when you don't have much to trade with.
yeah, I mean, that's the thing is, it's your running backs or your maybe your best option. You have some pieces. Like, I don't think the
I mean, I'm
players.
sure Neighbors or Jones somebody want to pick up, but
Yeah, Neighbors, Jones, maybe C.J. Stroud. You've got a couple pieces you could play with. Um, I unsurprisingly gave you an F. I think you kind of have to. Um,
yeah, I mean,
you also gave you an F, in fairness, and Alex did not give you an F. Alex is too nice of a guy.
oh, he's a sweetheart.
He gave you a D. And so that brings your average grade to, unfortunately, an F.
Yeah, and Jason, I might be looking at your roster here soon.
First podcast trade. Um, so those are your grades, and I'll do a solid after this and post a picture. I'll take a screenshot of this and post a picture in the chat in the group so you all have your grades. So without dragging this on any longer than we already have, let's get to our predictions.
Yeah, we'll try and go through these quickly.
Yep. First, as we always do, we start with the commissioners matchup. I'm playing against Jerry. I'm projected as a 6-point favorite right now. Don't know if my roster is going to stay this way. I've got a couple, obviously, players questionable, but then again, don't have a lot in the tank left except for Jalen Tolbert if I want to make switches. So, jeez.
See, for me, like I've got you. You're gonna win. I think you got a solid team. I don't think you're gonna have 2 bad weeks in a row. I think Purdy's not getting 20.2 against Dallas. I think Moss as a running back and Allen as his flex. I worry about them. I don't think they're going to score overly well. I don't know. There's too many question marks. I think his team's not going to hit 125. But I think yours is going to exceed your 131. So definitely give it to you.
I'm gonna predict me too. I think especially, it looks like I might get Jonathan Taylor back. Hopefully, might be big for me. Especially if I can get Olave, Taylor, and Kittle all in, I really like my odds. James Conner should run all over the Dolphins. They can't stop anything in the run game. Um, and I've got my regular quarterbacks in, and Dak and Lamar gets to play the Browns, who look to be in tatters. So
Yeah, you're looking at an impossible 40 burger there.
yeah, I am gonna go me. So we move on now to Scotty, and it didn't work. We're gonna go to Scotty and
James.
James. Matchup favors Scotty right now by 8.5. And it's across the board on those check marks.
Yeah, I still have James winning though.
Care to elaborate?
I mean they've got Bo Nix predicted at 18.3. I don't think that's happening. I mean, I know they're against the Panthers, but I don't know. I like the guy, but I think he's still a little shaky, so not big on that. I think Gino and Buffalo, again, that's another one that I don't know if it's going to go well in his favor. Rest of the team's probably going to get their projected, but I don't know. I think James's team looks better. I think AJ Brown's going to have a good game against Cincinnati. They just came off a really big defensive win, so a lot of times that comes with the fall right afterwards. So yeah, I think Buffalo's going to do well against the Seahawks. I just like him.
So what's interesting about this matchup, I agree
Oh,
with.
one more. Sorry, go ahead.
Go, no, go.
Oh, I mean, and Kelsey's playing the Raiders, so
Ha. But for the Mike Evans injury, this might my prediction might be different. But obviously, we know Evans is out. So I agree with your point about Bo Nix, even against a good matchup in Carolina. I don't necessarily trust Bo Nix, but I do trust Geno Smith. He's been a QB1, and yes, they're playing Buffalo, but they're playing in Seattle, where they're going to have the 12th man. So I'm less worried about Geno Smith. The key to this matchup is going to be whose running backs show up. If Kyren and Jahmyr Gibbs outscore Bijan and Dave Montgomery, Scott wins, and vice versa if the opposite is true. I think this hinges on the running backs. It's nice that James finally figured out A.J. Brown is not injured and took him out of his IR after 2 weeks that he's been healthy. But I'm actually going to go Scotty on this one. I think also James deserves a little bit of karma for keeping A.J. Brown in his IR for 2 weeks when he was healthy. So I just give the slight nod. I like Scotty's running backs a little bit better.
I mean, I do have to give you. I'm a little worried about Bijan. If Cousins has a bad game, they can't run it as much. But
yeah, moving to Zach and Window, and surprisingly, Window is a 1.9 point favorite right now.
yep.
And he still has Deebo Samuel in. Is Deebo really questionable? Like, he was in the hospital. Oh, I guess he got discharged today.
I think he's okay.
Yeah, he had fluid in his lungs. But there's no
Okay.
timeline. Apparently he had pneumonia, and no clear timeline to resume practicing or playing when he recovers. So that could be a big difference maker if he doesn't have Deebo and has to start somebody else. Because at this point, it's going to be either Shakir or Worthy or Ricky Pearsall for him. But realistically, Worthy or Shakir.
And I mean, Worthy has a nice matchup, but he's been struggling.
Yeah.
I think both teams have the potential of going off.
Yep.
But I'm going to give it to Window. I think Mahomes is currently underprojected. If you look at the stats, they have him projected at 14.2 points against the Raiders. So I think he's going to go off. I think he's going to have a good game. I mean, Devontae Adams, lost twice to the Steelers in 1 week. I just don't. I don't know. I think Windows got it. Zach with Kamara, Hill, Harris. I think they're all over projected.
Yeah.
If Tua stays healthy, Hill's going to be okay. But
I see this as the closest matchup of the week.
yes, I agree 100%.
I think there are just so many wild cards in this matchup. Daniel Jones, Sam Darnold, the defenses, 49ers against Dallas, Bengals against Philly. Like, this is just a kind of a wild card of a matchup, but I think it's gonna be close. I'm giving the nod. I have a rule of thumb in my mind, which is when in doubt, don't doubt the box. Uh, Zach's a luck box. I'm going Zach. It's that easy. Moving on. Jason Smith trying to get his third win of the year. This is the battle for Nova, although there are more people than just two of them live in Nova. But Brad and Jason Smith, their bromance must be put on pause for 1 week. I guess
Um,
I guess Brad hasn't set his lineup because Brandon Ayuk is in his lineup, but is projected as out. His
yeah,
hot,
he's at 128.4 if he makes the proper, like his best possible changes.
okay. I mean, still far below
Yeah.
Jason's good on paper team.
I mean, as long as Jason's team shows up, it should be good. But again, they're great on paper.
I gotta predict Jason, right? Like
Yeah,
he,
I mean, Amari Cooper, see how he does. He could be kind of hit or miss for a little bit. But I
like
mean,
like Amon-Ra St. Brown gets to play the Titans.
yeah, it's just I don't see a scenario where Jason doesn't win, which I'm sorry, Jason, means you're probably going to lose.
Yeah. Our last matchup of the predictions is
Me.
Alex against the former battle for Hagerstown. And Tua on IR still, but might be coming into this lineup. Don't sleep on him now.
No, I've got Alex winning.
You're projected as the favorite as of right now.
Yeah, but my team consistently underperforms.
I
I
have a
mean,
I have a feeling that Mark Andrews is going to put up 30.
like, oh yeah, he's gonna have a great game against me. I mean, if Jones, Neighbors, and Swift don't all go off, I don't have a chance. I mean, Alex, there's, I just hate my team. Hate my team.
Listen, buddy, I got good news for you. Alex has won 4 straight. He is due for a bad week.
I think he's on a roll.
He is. No, he is, but he is due for a bad week. Unfortunately for you, that will not come this week. Yeah, he gets his McMillan bye. Alex gets his McMillan bye right at the right time. He's got good matchups. Like I said, the Tua thing might give him a real boost. But he's got Stephon Diggs up against Indy. He's got Burrow up against Philly's defense, which hasn't looked as good as it usually does. I mean, Brees has been on a tear lately and gets to go against New England. There's a lot to like about Alex's matchups, and so I am going with Alex. And and Alex, did you get the text?
Yep.
Mystery solved. If any, I think Jason Smith is the only one watching the stream right now. But Alex just texted us, fuck, sorry, boys. I fell asleep and I was putting Holden to bed. The joys of dad life. Don't
Yeah,
sweat.
you can't fault him.
Don't sweat. We're gonna text him in a minute, but don't sweat, Alex. If I don't know if he's watched this or not. We're gonna get you back on the podcast at some point this year. I promise you. Don't sweat. I
Stay awake.
I know the struggles of dad life, as does Window, and he'll tell you about it. As does Jason, and he won't tell you as much about it. But we all get it. We love you, buddy. And we'll like I said, we'll get you on the pod. I promise. But thank you, Jay, for doing this as a 2-man crew tonight.
Yeah, I was definitely hoping Alex could fill in a lot of gaps. So
Well, no. So the one thing though I'm going to tell him is he's got to explain that A for Window. He's got to defend that grade. I don't care about any of the other grades. He's got to defend that one. That's the aberration. So, all right, guys. thanks for watching. We'll see you next week. Good luck in your matchups. And don't forget, this Sunday, the 27th, league event number 2 in Frederick. Come over to my place. Well, I'm sure we'll have some food. I'm sure we'll have some brews. We'll have a good time. So,
Sounds good.
yep. Thanks, boys. See you next week.
Later.